Welcome to the Health and Wellness Marketplace. Here's your host, Laura Lewis.
Hello and welcome to the Health and Wellness Marketplace. I'm your host, Laura Lewis. And joining me today is Richard Lenz, a leader in the organic farming and fishing industry and the owner of the Seagate Company. Richard, thank you for being here. Richard, last time you were here, we talked about omega-3 fatty acids, if I can say that, and in particular how beneficial they are in fighting heart disease. And you brought in some very interesting research as related to omega-3s.
Yeah, this is a topic that we could do for endless number of shows because omega-3s have so many applications to it. But rather than just talking about the production of it, since we are a fishing company, I thought let's talk about the science behind it.
Okay, let's do that. All right.
First slide.
First slide, we've got omega-3s. It was related. Let's read this here. Pre- and post-operative omega-3 fatty acids given to surgical patients caused a decrease in mortality. The number of patients requiring mechanical ventilation was lower, and the length of hospital stay was shorter, probably because of the increased immunity with fish oil supplementation. And so taking fish oils is going to boost the immune system.
Exactly. You know, a lot of people in hospitals are subject to secondary infections. So what they're saying is, you know, there's a lot of supplements people say, and including shark cartilage, where you may not want to take it before you go in for an operation and not too soon after you get an operation.
Now, why is that, by the way? You got to say, if you can't just say that, you got to tell me why.
Shark cartilage has what they say have this anti-angiogenesis effect. I'm going to test you on this at the end of the show.
Oh boy, anti-angiogenesis, okay. Which
is, you know, Dr. Judah Folkman in Harvard University discovered that shark cartilage, if you injected it into a tumor, would make the blood vessels surrounding the tumor go away.
Okay.
Angiogenesis of a tumor has to grow quickly, so it secretes some hormones that make the blood vessels surrounding the tumor grow faster to support the increased growth of the tumor.
Okay.
So that's why shark cartilage, you don't want to necessarily have that effect where you're stopping blood vessels from growing.
Prior to surgery or right after surgery.
Because the surgery requires the healing of the blood vessels. Okay. Although I've never seen anything like that happen where people were taking shark cartilage and they cut their finger and the finger's blood vessels didn't heal.
Okay. But then you should take omega-3s.
Yeah, that's what this article was saying, and that was a journal of, you know, some American Clinical Nutrition Journal, and they're saying that take it before, take it after, that it's going to help the immune system. It's going to give you a lower level of risk for mortality. It's going to have you healing faster, and it's going to give you your immune system a much better chance of recovery and protection while you're in the hospital, which is one of the most dangerous places to be for getting infections in the first place.
Yes, these days. Well, how exactly does taking omega-3s, what is happening in the body to help boost the immune system when you're adding the good fatty acids in omega-3 form?
Well, this is, you know, there's a lot of theories, and this is the one of the various that seems to hold true that I've read about, that the omega-3s are actually stimulating. Well, they get near the T cells, the body's killer cells that go out and search for, you know, oxidative molecules.
These are the good guys that go around, they grab onto the bad guys, right?
Yeah,
the
they
T cells.
For the foreign proteins or the foreign viruses or bacteria, and, you know, the army that goes and attacks anything that they think doesn't belong in your body.
Sure.
And the theory is that the omega-3s are creating a oxidative molecule near these T cells that will stimulate the T cells. You know, it's like you're lighting a match in front of,
so it makes them sort of turn on. They turn on. They're like, we're more on alert than we normally would be.
Exactly.
So, but it's a good thing.
Very good thing.
It makes your immune system sort of wake up, so the T cells are part of the immune system response, and so therefore it's on guard when you're taking this. So when you're going into a hospital environment, you're protected, much more likely to be protected.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's just a theory, and I don't know, because with Seagate, I mean, we're a manufacturer. We produce the shark liver oil, and we'll produce most of our other ingredients. That's what separates us apart from most of the health food companies, is we like to be known as the raw material supplier to our own plant. But we don't get involved in research because we're not a research scientific organization. My background, I was going to be an oceanographer, and I was a marine biologist.
You were an oceanographer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other side of me, the other part of the brain, I was a resource economist. So
oh boy, what a combination!
Yeah, that's why I go off in different directions at the same time.
Sure, but you're very interesting, though.
But you know a little bit about everything, so you're dangerous, but you're not an expert. And I never became an oceanographer. I became a project manager and an engineer building fish processing plants, and then somehow got involved in organic farming and constructing my own plant to do the processing of our own raw materials. But I can't say I was ever an oceanographer. I almost made that final fatal step and went for a PhD, but I got accepted into Woods Hole in New England, and life would have been a lot different, probably a lot less stressful, and I'll probably live a lot longer had I done that rather than being on TV and trying to operate a plant.
Well, I bet you're going to live a lot longer than many people, especially because of all the things you know and the things you're doing to take care of yourself. I mean, I think knowledge is power. Knowledge that gives you the power. You know that. So you got a lot of knowledge. We've got to take a break, Richard. But when we come back, we'll talk more about omega-3 fatty acids and your health right after this.
Hey, Martha, so how are ya? Have you heard?
Heard what?
Seagate just came out with an all-natural bye-bye diaper rash formula, a spray with omega-3s that is safe and effective for my little one.
You're right, Barbara. He looks much happier now.
This will work for your Leon, too. Buy Seagate products at your local health food store or contact us direct.
Welcome back. I'm with Richard Lentz of Seagate. I feel like I should be talking like this after that commercial.
So how are you? That's where I grew up. I can make that joke.
No, did you grow up there? I can't tell by your accent.
Yeah, I grew up in New York. And my son, who's going to school in Colorado, now he makes our commercials without me telling him what to do. So I didn't even come up with that idea. That was him doing it on his own.
So cute. It's really cute. Very memorable.
It's crack. We're going to try to make a radio commercial out of that, where it's a little bit harder when it's not visual, where you don't see those two ladies talking. But I think, in radio, where people generally turn themselves off when they hear a commercial, this one I think will keep their attention
Except
going.
if you run it in New York and they'd be like, well, there's no accent.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Richard, we were talking about omega-3 fatty acids, and now I'd like to talk about kidney disease. I believe that we've got a graphic to illustrate something here. It says a recent study demonstrates that treatment for 2 years with a daily dose of 1.8 grams?
Grams.
Of EPA, is that?
Yeah, it's one of those omega fatty acids.
Right. And 1.2 grams of DHA slowed the progression of renal or kidney disease in high-risk patients. The benefits persisted after 6.4 years of follow-up, and that's in nephrology, some sort of a nerve journal. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or no, excuse me, I'm sorry, nephrology is kidney. Excuse me, my brain went somewhere else there. So let's talk about that for a moment. How omega-3s and kidney disease?
I don't understand the mechanism. What they're doing is just trying to find different substances that will impact the ongoing development of the kidney disease, and they, I guess, just like Dr. Folkman with shark cartilage was experimenting with a couple hundred different substances, they came upon using omega-3 fatty acids. That's a lot higher dose, because if you add up the 1.8 grams and the 1.2, you have 3 grams of omega-3s. When you take shark liver oil, you have a 30% level of omega-3s. So we recommend 2 to 3 capsules a day, which would give you 250 milligrams.
That's all you need per day?
Yeah, because you're not treating, trying to treat a disease. Okay. We're just taking that as a supplement.
Just as a sort of a maintenance, okay.
Yeah, that's what I take every day. I take 3 capsules a day. To get up to a level where you're having 3 grams per day of omega-3s, you'd need to be taking 12 grams per day of shark liver oil, which would be 48 capsules.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's a pretty heavy dose.
Sure.
Even here, you'd almost have to be taking
here on the table
spoonfuls of this, but you really wouldn't want to be taking it. The reason we encapsulate it is because it's got a very strong, gooey fish taste. But we're not telling people, and as a company, we're not making that statement that you're going to treat kidney disease with omega-3 fatty acids. We'll let the scientists do that. However, we don't want to hide from the viewers the scientific research that's showing that there's so many great applications of omega-3s. So it's kind of tricky being in the health food industry, not being a pharmaceutical company, not having this approved by the FDA to say, treat kidney disease, treat Alzheimer's, treat this and that. We'll that's why we go to the slides to do that kind of work.
Well, and so this is in the bottle. That's pure shark liver oil.
Exactly.
Right. It's pretty viscous. I mean, is it not? You said it's kind of a gooey, fishy sort of, and I would not want to take a spoonful of this.
Well, here the temperature is probably 70 degrees in the studio. If oil is actually fat that turns to oil because of temperature, when we produce the oil in our factory, and the air temperature in the factory overnight gets down to, in the wintertime, maybe 50 degrees, this will turn back into fat in the tanks where we're storing it.
Okay, it'll solidify.
Solidifies,
okay.
Yeah. So depending on the temperature, if you're in the middle of winter and you're in Texas and this arrived by the UPS driver, it's very possible that rather than having these pretty yellow translucent capsules, you might have capsules that become kind of white and opaque, because the fish oil has reverted back to its original form, which is fish fat.
Okay.
And the fat in fish accumulates either in the liver and also in the meat. So, and the difference between fish oil and shark liver oil is that we're taking the big liver out of the shark, which have been caught for. This is for human consumption.
Sure.
It's not. We're not catching sharks for livers.
Just for the livers,
or for
right.
cartilage. And in the liver, it's fat. So we're boiling the liver. The oil floats up to the surface, and then we separate it out in a tank. And so at this point on, it stays pretty much as an oil, but it's a pretty thick oil. It's almost like honey syrup.
Okay.
And then our job after that is the real hard part. It's easy to separate the oil. The hard part is to take the contaminants out of it.
Now, you also have a relationship. There's a relationship between omega-3s and psychiatric disorders. I believe we have a graphic on that here. Would you like to read that?
Yeah, today there is some evidence-based support for the use of conventional medications with omega-3 fatty acids in the treatment of borderline personality disorder. My wife tells me to take the shark liver oil for that purpose.
But truly, a relationship between omega-3s, I've read about omega-3s as related to depression, for example, about how it might alleviate symptoms of that.
Yeah, you have depression. I think we have some slides on Alzheimer's. We have, I don't know if I brought this slide, but there's been a lot of work done for mothers that are taking it both in pregnancy and for toddlers for attention deficit disorder, all the way up to older people that are taking it for problems such as Alzheimer's disease, and people like me for general personality.
Well, I think that really everybody would benefit from taking omega-3 fatty acids, and we'll cover more of that. We've got to go to a break, but let's talk about that later on in the show, about pregnancy and children, that type of thing too. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Health and Wellness Marketplace. I'm your host, Laura Lewis. We're talking about omega-3s and your health with Richard Lentz from Seagate. Now, Richard, we did talk about, before the break, mentioned a little bit about pregnancy. I believe there is a study that you brought along that refers to omega-3s during pregnancy. Yes. Women can safely consume omega-3 in early pregnancy in order to prevent preterm delivery, promote an easier birth, assist the baby's brain and eye health, and pre-program the baby's cell membranes for optimum lifelong wellness. Oh, I love that. Benefits to the mother may include prevention of postnatal depression, and that's from Midwifery Today in 2004. Very interesting. Very interesting. I wish more people knew about this, truly. But what about pre-programming the child for a lifelong wellness?
Yeah, can you imagine that? Where, a lot of these supplements people are telling you, don't take it if you're pregnant. This is one absolutely you should be taking it while you're pregnant. And the reason being that a lot of the brain and the spinal column are composed of these DHA and EPA essential fatty acids, which they're essential because we don't produce them ourselves. You have to take them in order to get them as part of the development of the fetus. Had we been eating the way our great-grandparents used to, I remember when I was a little kid growing up in New York City with those ladies from the commercial, and we had older people. Originally we were living in this big apartment building where you'd walk by doors and you'd smell this horrible smelling fish being cooked, oily, greasy stuff being fried, which back then they didn't know wasn't a good way to do it.
Sure.
But they were eating fish every day. Friday nights they'd be eating fish. Catholic families, Jewish
Sure.
families, they'd be all eating fish, and they would be some of the nastiest fish that you can find, but nasty being fish smell more when they have more fats in them. And when
Right.
you're cooking the fats, it's the fats that are giving off the smell. And if we were eating that way, you wouldn't need supplementation. But how many of us are actually cooking fillets of greasy fish? You know, going to McDonald's and getting a fish fillet is the American idea this year of in the 2001 and 2006 of eating fish.
Sure.
And those cod fillets are made especially for the American consumer because they have hardly any oil in them, they have hardly any nutrients in them, they've been fried, they've cooked in grease, and they've been bread.
Basically, you're tasting the external part of it. The inside has really no flavor, hardly any flavor at all. And if it was a fatty fish, it would have more of a fishy, fragrant sort of smell and taste and that type of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. You know, you won't see the American consumer eating a fish fillet made out of mackerel or sardines.
Right. Well, right. That's true. That's true. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're as a company, we're going further down in the food chain rather than going up to the higher order levels of sharks and swordfish. We're going down to the small fish like the anchovies and the sardines to process our fish products because they have higher levels of omega-3s and also lower levels of contaminants. But that's basically the problem. Supplementation by fish oil is only a result of our changing eating habits.
It used to be more common for people to kind of open up a can of sardines and eat the sardines. I know it's very European. I have some friends that are from Germany, and they treated me to a little kind of an aperitif sort of situation prior to us going out to dinner, and they served sardines. Well, I didn't grow up eating sardines, and I wasn't inclined, but they were just eating those little fish, bones and all, just like nothing. And I think it truly is a cultural thing.
Exactly. My wife was traveling in Amsterdam on her own painting tulips, and she said, rather than having hot dog stands on the street, they have these pickled herring stands where they just take a fish and turn their head back and down goes the herring.
Oh my goodness, isn't that funny?
And herring is a very, very fatty fish. I know I used to process herring in a little plant in Maine in my earlier years, and that's why the Europeans get a lot of omega-3 fatty acids, and we don't.
Oh boy. What about children? How can they benefit from omega-3s?
Well, kids, ideally you want to be getting your kids 2 or 3 meals of fish every week, but the American kid is not going to eat that. So we made the capsules very small so that even small kids can take them. I think we have another graphic on that one.
I think we do have a graphic on that one. Omega-3s present in formulas for infants conditions the visual and cerebral abilities, including intellectual. Dietary omega-3 fatty acids are involved in the prevention of some aspects of cardiovascular disease and in some neuropsychiatric disorders, particularly depression, as I mentioned before, as well as dementia, notably Alzheimer's disease.
Good for, when the baby's in the womb all the way to when the baby is now 80 years old. Had we known this when our kids were little, certainly my wife would have been taking omega-3s during pregnancy and afterwards and forcing the kids when they were 2 or 3 years old, when they could be swallowing little tiny capsules, to be taking omega-3 supplementation.
Sure.
These days kids are diagnosed with ADD just because they're normally active and running around bouncing off the walls anyway, and they're put on Prozac and all these other things. Well, maybe we could just give them a little bit more fish oil, and maybe that might be a solution rather than having the kids on these psychotic drugs.
True. I would much rather do that. As a matter of fact, my 7-year-old son, I've given him some omega-3s, and we slip it in, and getting the children accustomed to taking supplements like that instead of, remember, way back when, cod liver oil. It was pretty common for people, remember, that they'd had the bottle of cod liver oil in the cabinet. Here, come take your cod liver oil. That's basically the same thing,
Well,
correct?
Before my time, that might have been.
Because now it would be shark liver oil and Richard Lentz from Seagate. We're going to take a break, but we'll be right back after this.
When those fungi and germs are getting you down, don't be sad. Reach for all-natural Seagate olive leaf extract. When those skin germs start attacking, apply Seagate Alleviate All Natural Medicine. Buy Seagate products in your local health food store or contact Seagate Direct.
Welcome back. Talking with Richard Lentz of Seagate. A very interesting subject, omega-3s. It's just too bad, you're right, that we didn't know about this a long time ago. Of course, there's age-old wisdom. There are many cultures that probably know it intuitively, and they have healthier outcomes. But fortunately, we now know, fortunately, you're educating people that it is really important to include omega-3s in your diet from before birth till the very end. It's excellent for you. But what about, Richard, what about, we did mention emotional and like hyperactivity, that type of thing. What are some other neurological disorders? I believe we might have a graphic that relates to this particular subject here. Go ahead.
Yeah, omega-3 fatty acid supplementation in patients with epilepsy may reduce seizures and irregular heartbeats and hence prevent sudden unexpected deaths. From Seizure 2004.
Very interesting. Now, how does that all work?
Well, I think it's all the same. What we're doing is that's in common with all this, whether it's kids, postnatal depression in women, Alzheimer's disease, is that we're providing a supplement, or if you're eating fish and getting a lot of omega-3s from the fish oil and the natural fish, that are a very important component of our nervous system. And they're not really saying in these articles why exactly this is happening, but they're just, they're doing these analytical...
They're relating it.
Where, they're taking curves of people that are subjects that aren't eating any omega-3s and incidence of this disease versus people that have X number of grams per day of omega-3s.
So they know it's better to have omega-3s versus not having omega-3s in all these situations.
But they're not explaining what is it.
Right.
But that's what you're asking, and so what I'm assuming is that the omega-3s are such an integral part of our nervous system that not getting enough of them is actually damaging the development.
Well, it really makes perfect sense, because I know that our brain and our nerve tissue, much of it is fatty tissue. It's fatty material, and that's how nerves kind of travel along, neurons travel along through the body, correct? I mean, you need this for optimum neurological functioning. You need essential fatty acids. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, no, they're components, the actual
absolute components of it. Right, it's what it makes up of your neurological system. We have a viewer question related to the subject. Let's see what they have to say.
Can I get omega-3s from eating seafood?
Now, you did talk about, you mentioned that earlier.
Depends on the seafood. I mean, you're not going to get omega-3s from non-fatty fish, or shellfish have very little in them. If you eat a lobster dinner.
So shellfish does not have high omega-3s?
No. People will eat canned tuna, but the Americans don't like the dark meat from the tuna.
But it's better to have the dark.
Better to eat the dark meat.
Because it has higher fat.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Go for the fatty fish, like the mackerel type of fish. If the smellier the fish, the more likelihood, that's assuming that the fish is fresh.
Sure.
But just the smellier the fish, the more fat on the fish, the higher the omega-3s.
So on the menu, I'll have the smelly fish, please? Is that what we should? I mean, relative to, really, truly, we should be looking for halibut and the fattier fishes like that. But now the question is, the big debate about the mercury in the fish. I mean, what about that? Yeah,
that's the other part. That's the other half of the equation, is as you go up the food chain and get up to the tuna, or to the sharks, or to the shark livers, you're going to get much higher contamination, and this is not to scare the viewer off, but you have the PCBs, the pesticides, you have heavy metals, mercury, cadmium, lead, arsenic. And this is what we have to deal with the shark liver oil, is now you're at the top predator. You have very high concentrations of all of this in there because the sharks are eating everything out there in the ocean, so everything is going to concentrate in their liver, which is the filter mechanism.
Okay.
And that's a hard part in our plant, is actually not taking the oil out, but treating the oil and removing the PCBs, omega.
All the bad stuff. So you've already done that.
Yeah, but you can, if you're going to eat the fish, you want to tend to be at the lower level of the food chain where these contaminants haven't had a chance to concentrate, because when you go from each level, from anchovy to mackerel to tuna to shark, you're going to have a multiplier effect of about 10 times each time you move up the food chain, or 1,000 to 10,000 times the level in a shark versus an anchovy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, it makes sense. It truly does. But so you've already taken in your product here, the shark liver oil product. You've done the work. You've taken it out. It's probably a lot safer and less risky to have this on a regular basis versus having the other kind of fish that's floating out there in the ocean, swimming around with all these other toxins in it.
Yeah, but I'd recommend eating, a lot of the lower level species like anchovies, sardines, and small mackerels and
Sure,
things. But,
exactly.
But, I'm not saying just supplement alone. You need to be eating fish.
Of course, yeah. Well, anyway, that's all we have time for today, Richard. It just flew, as usual. But if you'd like to know more about Seagate and all the amazing products they have to offer, you can call them at 888-505-GATE or 4283, or visit their website at seagateproducts.com. Richard, again, thank you so much for stopping by. It's always interesting. It just blows me away. My brain is about to explode with all the information that you present every single time. I know I need this. And thanks to all of you at home. Thank you for visiting the market as well. We're open again tomorrow at the same time, same place, so be sure to tune in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. I'm Laura Lewis. See you next time in the Health and Wellness Marketplace. Have a wonderful day.